Hey folks, Tim Gresh here, professional bike fitter in Southeastern Pennsylvania. This will be an intro to Lake cycling shoes, a general overview of this brand, and then I'm gonna wrap up with my top 3 picks of models of Lake. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and let's get started. Okay, so Lake cycling shoes. I have a lot to say about this brand. I'm gonna keep this video high level on just some of the basics so you can get an overall understanding of what they offer. Now, generally speaking, Lake offers shoes that are wider than most others. That doesn't mean that all their shoes are wide. It just means that they have options that will go pretty wide, but then they'll also have shoes that are kind of a little bit more narrow. Most cycling shoes are kind of more of a one size fits all in the sense that you pick the length of your shoe, and that's basically it. They don't have different variations of widths to choose from. Now, one thing that I see very often here in the fit studio is when a cyclist will have a shoe that's too long, and they do that typically because they are trying to get the right width. So for example, they'll buy, say, a size 45 euro shoe because it kind of fits well on their foot. The problem is that their foot is only maybe a size 43 length. But if they put their foot in a size 43, it would feel too tight because that shoe doesn't have variations of widths to choose from. That's why I like Lake, that you can get them in different widths, so you're not compromising and getting a shoe that's too long. When you get a shoe that's too long, it's gonna compromise your cleat placement. So if you are in a shoe that's, say, a size too long, your cleat's gonna be a little bit further forward than maybe you should have it. And that can cause fit issues. Another really cool feature with Lake is that you can actually order split sizes. And what that means is you can get one size for one foot, another size for the other foot. This is pretty cool because there's a surprising number of people out there that have different size feet. It's pretty common for it to be like a half size difference. And if that's the case, not that big of a deal. Typically, you can just kind of get the same size shoe. But there's a surprising number of people with a full size or more difference in foot length. And with Lake, you can actually get 2 different size shoes so that you have a much better feel. Now, very important with Lake that you actually try the shoes on. So if you are near a dealer of Lake who is experienced with this, it's definitely worth going to a dealer, trying these on to make sure that you are in the right last and shape, which I'm gonna get to in a minute here. When folks come to me for bike fits, there is an option where if they wanna explore Lake, we can do that during the bike fit, or I will schedule with customers to come in, try on Lakes, see which one makes sense for them. So definitely not a great shoe to be buying online. You wanna go somewhere that knows what they're talking about when it comes to these shoes. Now, going back to the topic of width, Lake offers essentially 3 different lasts. They have the race last, the competition, and then the comfort. That's going from more narrow to the widest. So your race last will be for wide-ish feet. The competition is gonna be generally for a little bit wider feet, and then the comfort is for very wide feet. So when picking out a Lake cycling shoe, we typically wanna start off with which last do we wanna go with of those 3, race, competition, and comfort, and then sort out what length is needed. And when it comes to length, Lake offers half sizes, so you can really hone in on just the right length. I like to size these shoes so you have just enough room at the end where you don't feel like you're jamming your toes into the front. There's a little bit of breathing room, but we don't want it to be too much room for the reasons that I said earlier, because you'll start to compromise your cleat position going with a shoe that's too long. Now, last detail to discuss here is that Lake will offer a CX model and an MX model. Can be a little confusing, but essentially a CX shoe is just simply a road shoe. It has the 3-bolt pattern on the bottom. So this is for your road pedals and cleats, like your Look, your Shimano Road, Speed Play, and so on. And then the MX shoe, this would be the 2-bolt on the bottom. This would be for your SPD cleats, Crank Brothers, and all those other types, off-road riding, mountain biking, gravel, all that stuff. Now, what's cool is that if you find a shoe within Lake that you really like, let's say it's the 333, you can get this in the CX version and an MX version. So it'll feel the exact same. You just choose if you want it in a road or in an off-road, the CX or the MX. Okay, so that's the general overview. Let's go on to my 3 picks. These are 3 shoes from Lake that I'd say currently I am liking the most. In no particular order, we're gonna start off with the 242. Very interesting design. This actually has panels that make up the upper of the shoe, and then underneath those panels is sort of like a nice, soft, kind of flexible shell. So this adapts to a lot of different foot shapes, and this is also the competition last. So this is the kind of a wider overall shape. It's definitely gonna be wider than most other brands out there, like your Shimano, your Specialized, Louis Garneau, all those. The competition last, just a good amount of width to it. Very adaptable shoe. Surprisingly, this will work well for narrow feet as well as wide feet. It's kind of weird. It's just a very adaptable shoe. This also comes in a standard and a wide. So the last will stay the same, but the amount of material that they give you on the top can vary. So for example, if you have a very high volume foot, you might go with the wide version to accommodate that. If you have a very narrow foot, you can go with the kind of standard width. Another detail with the 242 is it does have a heat moldable heel. So you can put this in your oven. You don't want to overcook it. 200 degrees for about, I believe, 10 minutes. And you can actually squeeze the heel in, make it a little bit more snug if that's what you want to do. Next up is the 333. So this one is based off of the race last. So this is the more narrow last shape that Lake offers. And this one is just a stiff, like kind of high performance shoe, has a very tight heel cup. So it gives you just a nice locked in feeling. I love these shoes personally. I grew up road bike racing. So a stiff kind of locked in cycling shoe is something that I love. I like riding out of the saddle. This thing just feels super secure. Very nice material on the top. The 2 boas, very adjustable. So this shoe actually comes in 3 different widths. Now, like I said, it is the race last, but within the race last, there's actually 3 different widths. This is where Lake gets a little bit confusing. So you can actually choose the width within the width if you want to think of it that way. Yet another reason why it's very important to get these sized properly. Very easy to do it wrong and not get a great experience. And this also has the heat moldable heel. Now my last pick is the 201. This is the comfort last. So this is the widest last that Lake offers. This is great for very wide feet or feet that are sort of square shaped across the top, maybe like a Flintstone type of foot. A lot of folks love this shoe. For some people, this is the only shoe within Lake that they can wear because they have such wide feet. The 201 also has a mesh on the top, so really just kind of expands nicely and accommodates a very wide foot. This one only comes in 1 width, but the platform is just very wide by default, so typically works well for just about anybody that has a very wide foot. Now, a lot of shoes have kind of a pointed toe box. This really moves away from that and has just a more square shaped front, which is something that I really like. And I hope that Lake does more shoes off of the comfort last as time goes on. All right, so those are my 3 picks within Lake and a general overview. I hope you found this video helpful, understand this brand. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to make more videos on Lake shoes. I can definitely do some very deep dives into this brand. Thanks for watching and enjoy every ride.